Welcome to Stewing the Pot. Florida is known for its beaches and amusement parks, but it also has its share of crime. This is the story of Taylor Wright, a resident of Pensacola and private investigator and a former police officer. Taylor went missing in September of 2017, and the last person to see her was Ashley MacArthur, a close friend of Taylor. What happened to Taylor Wright? Find out now on Stewing the Pot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Stewing the Pot. This is Greg Stewart, and today we have an interesting case in reference to the murder of Taylor Wright. We're going to investigate it in reference to who killed her, why they killed her, and we're going to look at it from a life coaching perspective. There's going to be questions for you to answer, and we're going to work together as a team. So let's get ready and stew the pot, as we already have our first connection in reference to that this takes place in Florida, in the Pensacola area, an investigator, former police officer, and there's a couple cast of characters here. You're going to find out there's a woman named Cassandra Waller, who is her girlfriend. You're going to connect on Ashley MacArthur, which is a friend of hers that she also puts a lot of trust in, and you'll see what I mean by that. But let's go ahead and find out what happened exactly to Taylor Wright on Stewing the Pot. And before we get into this story, if you can do me a wonderful favor, and if you can please like, subscribe, and share, you're really helping this podcast of true crime grow and help and influence people in a positive way by utilizing our life coaching clues into their everyday life. So please, once again, like, subscribe, and square. I do appreciate it. And now let's get into this story.
It was a beautiful Florida morning, and Taylor was getting together with Ashley. Prior to leaving, Taylor would let her life mate Cassandra know that she would be going out with Ashley. Cassandra was starting to get concerned. It has been many hours, and Taylor hasn't come home yet. Cassandra would call Ashley, "Is Taylor still with you?" "She hasn't picked up my calls." "No, I dropped her off a while ago. She said something about catching an Uber, getting a beer. That was the last I heard from her." At this point, it has been over 24 hours, and Cassandra would file a missing person report. The report stated that the last person she was with was Ashley. Ashley would tell the police what she told Cassandra, and was then released, but shortly after the interview with Ashley, the police would find the body of Taylor.
Now, at this point, we have no clues yet. And we don't have any history in reference to how the three of them all get along. One is a friend, one is a girlfriend, and of course, Taylor. So just a regular day, we're getting out, but is it? Now, we haven't elaborated into the story of why they're going out in the first place, but just from the initial connection in reference to Taylor, Cassandra, and Ashley, nothing out of the norm. But here's your first question in reference to what you have noticed thus far. Let's continue with the story.
When police began investigating the death of Taylor, they would find out that she had issues with drugs and that she has not been faithful in her relationship with Cassandra, and she would have issues over her son with her ex-husband and finances that Taylor would take out of the joint bank account when they were married for a sum well over $100,000. Taylor would request Ashley to hold on to the money in her account in case investigators would trace it back to her, and the courts did just that, and they demanded that Taylor pay the monies back or face jail time.
Okay, so now we found out a little more information. We found out that there was some money and that Taylor was married, and then she basically, in a sense, embezzled some money from her husband, a lot of money in that regards. She shares a son with her ex-husband, and she's involved with Cassandra, as we already know, and she asked Ashley to hold on to the money. Now, why do you think she felt trust? Do you think it's because her structure in life is different? After all, there's word that she's on drugs, which we'll elaborate down the road. But so she has a drug issue. But you'll also find out down the road that as well as Ashley, as well as Taylor, they have a history together in reference to law enforcement. Her husband, meaning Ashley, is a sheriff's deputy, which is something you'll also find out down the road. So these are just some added clues of what could be playing into the upcoming storyline. But would it still be something for you to say, hey, I don't want my husband to get this money back? Can you put this in a bank account under your name and trust it with her? Would that be something that you would do? And what does this tell you from a life coaching perspective? Yes, you're looking to hold on to this money. Yes, you're willing to have this large amount of money being held by a friend. Is this logical thinking? Now, or do you see this as emotional thinking? So that's the key factor, because when you do impulsive things, which from my perspective, this would be an impulsive thing to do by giving someone, a few bucks, this, that, to hold away, a couple $100, but we're talking 100 or a little over $100,000. So let's see how the story goes from here. But go ahead and just write in the comments, how would you handle this particular situation when it comes to that kind of money? All right, let's move on to the story.
Cassandra would meet up with Ashley, she said when I spoke with Taylor last. She told me that the two of you were heading to the bank and withdraw the monies that she had given you to hold for her. What happened? She was feeling stressed, and so I said, let's go to my family's farm and ride some horses before we went to the bank. She thought that was a good idea, and then after horseback riding, she wanted to have a beer, and I had things to do, and I took her home, and she said that she was going to get an Uber. That's all I know. Now the investigation began, and the police, even though there was not a body at the time, the police began to treat it like a homicide. And the suspects are now Cassandra, Ashley, and at the moment, Taylor's ex-husband, Taylor's.
So now at this point, the police are picking up on the investigation. They don't have a body yet, but they're going to take in Ashley as well as the others in reference to interrogating. Now, the husband's going to get cleared, and you're going to find out that he was in another state. So he's going to be out of the mix. But Cassandra, still a powerful person to look at, because after all, they had a relationship together. But Ashley, she's also one to look at because she was the last person with her. And then, will the money come up? Will that be one of the things? Which obviously it will, because Cassandra's going to say she was only supposed to be going to get money that she had to pay back to her husband via the state. So does that basically change the equation of things in reference to how the police are going to look at this case? And how are you looking at it from an outsider in reference to where is Taylor? Who did what? Because one of the key things that is not basically stated. Now, if you watch the documentary on YouTube or the ID channel, they're going to reference that, and you're going to hear it here as well to a degree. But Taylor, because of her drug problem, she also had a problem with infidelity. She basically did have a history of cheating. So even though there's no other players, she does have a history of doing something. And when you watch the documentary, you could hear Cassandra leaving her a message saying that, hey, this is too much. There's always something. I don't know when you're here, when you're not here. There was someone before us. There's someone now. This is driving me crazy, and it's over. So does that make you now a suspect? And then, of course, the money concerns with Ashley in reference to where is the money? Now you're going to find, watching those other storylines as well, that this money that was supposed to be in a Wells Fargo was then later put in a safe deposit box. But Taylor and Cassandra were under the impression that it was in Wells Fargo. So we're going to elaborate in reference to that. But here's your next question before we continue the story.
Eventually, Taylor's ex-husband would be cleared. His whereabouts was in another state at the time Taylor went missing. The police found Taylor's body, but it wasn't at the family farm of Ashley. It was just a few miles down the road. Taylor was shot in the back of the head. What really helped the police put this together was following the pings of Ashley's cell phone. But what did not help Ashley was that after her interrogation, which she gave the impression that she was so worried for Taylor, I hope she didn't go looking for drugs because Taylor has a drug problem, and I hope this isn't related to her going missing. But the pings tell a different story. The pings showed the police that Ashley never had gone to the family farm and that she went exactly where the body was found, just a few miles down the road from the farm. And then Ashley would try to show her concerns by contacting Daly the detective, giving him some possible clues in where she would go to get drugs. Little did Ashley know she was the prime suspect. But as the saying goes, keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer.
Okay, so the police are starting to clear people, the ex-husband, the current girlfriend, except for Ashley. Ashley is actually digging her own grave. And how she's doing this is basically she's calling the detectives. I'm really concerned. Anything new, anything, my husband's in law enforcement. Is there a way we can help? Is there any kind of way we could help and get on the inside track? I'm really concerned. She's an amazing, wonderful friend, and I miss her, and I want to know she's safe. You could imagine how that conversation goes. But the detective is onto her. Now, he couldn't elaborate because he said, "This is my prime suspect." And at this point, I'm going to let her keep just unfolding. I'm going to keep reeling her through until we get more evidence. Now, they do pursue her in reference to putting the pressure on. They bring her in again and saying, "Look, we're going to investigate this farm that you were at. And then we're going to investigate where your pings are. Where, say, if your family farm, we're going to look at that. And then we're going to look at where your last phone ping was." And she was like, "Go right ahead. I have nothing to hide." And they still kept putting the pressure. "Go right ahead. I have nothing to hide." But what's to come is what happens after that interrogation when she's allowed to leave, because technically everything they had and have was circumstantial. Now, going through this, what makes a person do this? Greed is a powerful thing. Now, there are people that do things, unfortunately, in reference to greed to hurt people, but what makes someone go this extra mile? Now, my theory is, now obviously she had it in her because it looks like she is the one that done this. But again, you spent the money or you have it hid. Either way, you don't want to give it up. And does it really have that kind of power on you to take a life because you're worried about repercussions, whether you spent it or whether you don't want to give it back at this point? So we're going to find out more and more. Here's your next question, and then we're going to continue with the story.
Ashley may feel that she is the smartest person in the room when it comes to speaking to law enforcement. Ashley's husband is a sheriff's deputy, and being around him for all these years, she may believe that she knows how police are going to play things out when it comes to a homicide. But the police had Ashley right where they wanted her. They were able to look at her bank account and notice all of this money, and where it was being spent. And then there was checks being cashed from an unknown man, given to him from Ashley. When investigated, he owned a business and Ashley was helping him support his business, and the police asked, why would she do that? And the man would reply that he has been seeing her. The police were ready to bring in Ashley. After a year of gathering enough evidence to build their case, it was time to interrogate Ashley and see if she would be forthcoming. Ashley would still deny the accusations of her being responsible for Taylor's disappearance. The police would have to let her go. But shortly after Ashley was released, the investigators on the farm down the road from Ashley's family farm found the remains of what they believe was Taylor. The police would bring Ashley back in and show her the location from the family farm to where she was found, and how her phone's ping would show her at the farm. Ashley's world was coming apart. But even with this evidence, Ashley would deny that she wasn't involved, and that she had nothing to do with Taylor's disappearance despite her being the last person to see her. Ashley was booked for murder at this time.
Okay, so at this point, the evidence is circumstantial. Now, you may say, how is it circumstantial? She's right down the road. The body is found from Ashley's family farm. But Ashley wasn't there. But Ashley said we were going horseback riding. Well, she still claims that that's the case, but I took her home. How she ended up from point A to point B is beyond me. The police then say, well, how do you explain your phone being at the whereabouts of where Taylor is? I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. So she's pleading in a way almost the fifth, if you will. She's still cooperating, but cooperating with lies, and they're onto her, but it's high circumstantial at this point, and they're going to go to court, and some certain things are going to come out. There's a boyfriend, there's how money was spent, there's a check that was forged in reference to the handwriting of Taylor. This comes out in other documentaries, so I'm just speeding through the chase. But where she's connecting to go to court, as I stated, there's a man, she's helping him supply his business. So that comes up in the trial as well, still circumstantial because the defense is still going to plead she knows him and she helped him, but that money had nothing to do with point A or point B. Again, circumstantial. And in reference to the other twist of things, of course, they're going to try to blame the husband, but he was cleared. They're going to probably try to blame Cassandra, though she is cleared. But still, the reputation that she has to go with, like, you're putting me through this when all the evidence points to her, that's a defense's job. That's why it's called defense. So we're going to get into the final question in reference to Ashley and what you feel and think so far of this case. But again, what kind of behavior is this? Do you put this as just total grief? Do you put this as psychopathic because she did take a life? Do you take this as narcissist? I mean, where does it fall in reference to someone's behavior when you're looking at them from outside of yourself, saying, okay, they're a friend, but now I have to step outside and really look at this person. Well, what are you seeing in reference to this person? Well, let's find out how this is going to finish up. Let's continue the story. But here's your last question.
When the trial began, there was an abundant amount of evidence, though what seemed strong was more so circumstantial. Even though witnesses from places that Ashley had frequented, particularly bars, stated she was going to poison and kill Taylor. Even her boyfriend, who she was seeing, stated that Ashley had mentioned when Taylor's name came up that she was long gone, and she will not be found. The defense would deny these allegations, and now it was up to the jury to decide if Ashley was guilty. The judge would ask, "At this time, has the jury reached a verdict?" "Yes, Your Honor, we have." The jury found the defendant guilty of first-degree murder. The judge would sentence Ashley to life in prison.
All right, so we come to the end of the case, and Ashley is convicted of first-degree murder. And the evidence that maybe wasn't verbally displayed at this point was that when they found the body of Taylor, there was concrete. And the reason why this is important is because Ashley had purchased some concrete. And I believe it was more flaky, where what they found with Taylor was more of a solid base. So they brought in a specialist, at least the defense did, and said, these two, they don't match up. So you can't convict her on this. You cannot do that because if you're going by the concrete and what she purchased and what basically was found, it just doesn't match. So the jury didn't buy into that. According to what the district attorney was able to emphasize, they didn't buy into it because the fact was this: they had enough evidence, they felt, circumstantial or otherwise, and the jury obviously bought into that as well, from the ping to the location to the farm to the boyfriend to the money and the forgery of checks. We have enough evidence to say, you know what, it's all pointing to you. And that's exactly what happened, first-degree murder. So I thank you for coming along on this true crime podcast. I look forward to you continually coming with me to these podcasts where we can grow as a life coach, have the right questions and answers, and anything that you would like to add to it, please put in the comment box. But until then, come back with me and stew the pot. But before you do that, please like, subscribe, and share. It really does help myself and this podcast continue to live. So until next time, I'll see you on our next Stewing the Pot. Have a good evening.